Good afternoon to our gating committee. Today is Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. It is a great, exciting day, I will say. Every day is, but here in Derby Public Schools, because right after this meeting, we are going to start administering our first COVID-19 vaccinations for staff. I know we're quite excited about that. And that will start at 1:30. So with that being said, we appreciate again the support we have Sedgwick County, we have Derby Drug and Dam Pharmacy for helping to make that possible. So with that being said, we'll get right to it today and go over our information that we have. We'll start with our gating criteria considerations and get the feedback, and everybody should have received an email that also had this data. So we'll turn it right over to Nikki, I think, to go over that information.
Yes, so if we look at the matrix, we are looking at week 28 and 29, and we're at 5.9 and 4.4 with an average of 5.15%.
Wow, can you say that again? 5.15. Look at that. We have not heard those numbers okay. With that being said, any discussion or comments on that before we would vote on that, whether it's red, orange, yellow, or green? All right, if not, Latona's going to pull up that poll for us to log in where you're feeling that falls. Okay, we have the voting poll has closed with our vote, so we will place this one in yellow. So this one will go in yellow. Next one is our community trends.
Yes, so our community trends, sorry, multitasking here. We have the trend from the health department on that matrix is stable. And then if we look at our student numbers the past couple of weeks, the end of January, we were at 14, and then the next week was 10, next week was 8, this past week was only 4. So we are definitely decreasing what we are seeing for our students.
Okay, and staff numbers for that community trend, looking at the last 4 weeks, we were at 5, 2, 2, and 1. So also decreasing with our staff positive cases as well.
Okay, any questions or discussions on that one? All right, if not, then Latona will pull up the poll. And we had a few people just join on in. Right now we are on the community trend in voting on that. And it looked like staff and students was decreasing is what they had. Okay, on this one, we would be then, it looks like in green. Okay, so the first one, for those that just joined in, we were in yellow, and then this one green. Okay, moving on to community criteria.
Yes, so our 2-week total, week 28, we are at 193.5, and week 29, we are at 115.3. So that is a total of 208.8. And then I think I already went over the student numbers where last week we had 4 positives.
Okay. Definite different information from both Sedgwick County, as you can see on there, to where in the district is. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and pull up the poll unless there's any other questions or comments. Okay. One more if you'd like to vote. All right, if that's everybody that would like to vote at this point, we'll go ahead and close that. So it looks like that will be in yellow. Okay. Then we have next Holly with building absenteeism.
Okay, so our building absenteeism looks a little different this go round. And we went and did some digging in the numbers just because with the low number of COVID cases, as well as so I'll just bring it up here, the low numbers of quarantines, we were looking to see, what might have caused some of our schools to fall within the orange and the yellow range. And so when we're looking at that, one of the things that we saw is even though our COVID numbers are low, our percentages for absenteeism and attendance were the highest that they had been. So, like, here's Cooper, for example, for the entire year. And so, when you compare that to a time window that had a remote day, and then the weather days that we had, what we saw was that we had students, we actually went in and did some digging and researching here, that were absent for other reasons than sickness. And so that brought our attendance percentages down and our absenteeism rate up. So when you look at our schools using the same criteria, including the quarantine kids in as absent, we had Cooper, Oaklawn, and Derby Middle in orange, and El Paso, Swaney, and Tanglewood as yellow. We did go back again and look at those absenteeism numbers, and they don't appear to be COVID related. They appear to be more just basic attendance related. Any questions about that?
Okay, I can touch on the staff absenteeism as well. Then we had one school on that report that was showing up yellow. That was El Paso. Again, looking at that, they have only one staff member in quarantine at this time. So the absences seem to be related to factors other than COVID. And then we have 8 staff members district-wide currently in a COVID-related quarantine. So that is significantly down from where we have been before. We're seeing that in our sub coverage as well, in that this week we've been able to be fully covered, even our classified positions. So feeling pretty good about staff absenteeism rates at this point.
Great. Thank you both for sharing that. Any other questions or discussion you would like to have before we would vote? Okay, if not, Latona will pull up the poll for building absenteeism. One more vote if you'd like to vote. All right, looks like we are in yellow for that based on the input vote. Okay, thank you. The last area on here is hospitals.
Right, so we had 2 items linked up there. One is from KDHE, it's South Central information, and they showed 25% of adult ICU beds available. And then if you look on the Sedgwick County dashboard, it's drastically decreased, and we actually have a good green little check mark, which we haven't seen in quite a while. So,
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Any questions or discussion, comments on that? Okay, if not, Latona will pull up the poll. All right, looks like that puts us in yellow. All right, the next piece is looking at the modes then, well, considering first all the information we need to get the overall color where we land. I'll recap where we're at in case anyone joined in a little later. First one was yellow, community trend was green, and then the next 3 categories were yellow. So based on that, considering all the data and information, What do you recommend? Green, yellow, orange, or red? Latona will pull that up. Okay, looks like we will continue to operate then in yellow based on that poll. The next piece is looking over modes of how we would operate. So, and if we have any feedback or recommendations on that, before we pull up the poll, we start with elementary.
I would just recommend that we continue doing what we're doing. It seems to be working.
I would agree.
I would agree as well.
All right, the poll will be opened for you to vote then for elementary. All right, 100% in favor of in-person. So we will remain in person for elementary. Middle school, before we pull up the poll, any comments regarding middle school?
Same as what I think elementary said, is it seems everything we're doing seems to be working. So I'd say we should continue as is.
I concur with Clarence.
Okay. Thank you both. All right, any other comments? All right, the poll is open. All right, middle school will remain in person. Moving on to high school. Any comments on high school?
Administration, same as the lower levels. Stay in person.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, if not, the poll is coming up for high school. All right. 100% on high school. So next one we look at is just revisiting with safety security logistics chart. Where we take a vote on that right now, is there any proposal? Do you want to keep it as is? The question, I mean, we'll say yes or no in reviewing, are we okay with it? But is there any discussion of any change that you want to consider now, or do you want to vote and see if we agree with keeping it the same?
I mean, are temperature checks for staff still necessary, you think? If we had anybody that had got their temperature checked and ended up being a positive, I mean, is that something we still need to do, or we just encourage them to do it before they come to work or school? My suggestion.
So you're proposing on temperature checks to put that to low level?
Yes.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
In Urban North, I have not heard of anybody who is has noticed anything testing that way.
Okay. Katie, we were going to say something.
I don't have any preference one way or the other on temperature checks, but I think everything else should just stay as is. That gets us to spring break, and I think maybe making sure that things continue on this trend before making any other, I think would be a little cleaner. So I think leave the rest as is would be my hope.
I agree with that.
Okay. So what we would be voting on then, if the proposal is that we would leave the chart all the same except for temperature checks, and that one would be moved to low level. So that's what we'd be voting on. One change, low level temperature checks, everything else the same. She's going to pull it up and see if everybody's, or we have the majority that's okay with that. And again, reviewing the safety security logistics chart, you're voting that we move temperature checks to low level and everything else the same. Yep, clear over the opposite way there, Latona. That one.
What about visitors? I can't.
There you go. I think right now we're saying we're voting on this one unless you want to have further discussions on the polls.
Sorry, on temperature checks, people that they're entering the building. I can't read what that says from here.
Low level, we would not be temperature checking visitors.
Okay. Wanted to make sure that that was clear to.
Yes. Okay. She'll pull up. Go ahead.
Sorry, just a random question. So the only difference between the moderate and the low level, I mean, in practice, is that visitors are screened. Because I mean, at the moderate level, the staff and students may be required for temperature checks, but they don't have to take them.
So right now, what we've said staff-wise right now, right, is May. You're right. The big difference is the visitors, and staff right now, as they enter, we're still saying staff should be checking themselves with that. This would be at home. Everybody's doing everything at home. Again, visitors right now with this chart still being it, they're only with administrator approval. But when they come in, they would not be temperature checked going to an IEP meeting or going somewhere in the building.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. All right, with that being said, let's see where people are at on that. If you agree with the change and where the chart sits, either yes or no. One more if you'd like to vote. All right.
Heather, that might be me. I can't get it to work on my phone.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm a yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. We have the majority are in yes, so we will make that a modification regarding temperature checks. That will conclude our meeting today. The gating meeting, the next one will be on, it looks like March 17th at 1 p.m. And again, as with every gating committee meeting, I appreciate this committee, your feedback, and meeting every couple weeks. So have a great rest of your day. We'll see you. Bye-bye.